Hello everyone, Colin Canet here for Woodwork Web. Today we're back here in the workshop and I want to talk briefly today a little bit about belt sanders. And we have two examples today of belt sanders that I want to talk about. The first one is an older style of belt sander, still readily available. And also we've got a newer style, a little bit different design that we're going to talk about. The first belt sander that I want to talk about is sort of an older design, and this is a 3-inch, and that's measured by the width of the belt by 21 inch, and that means if you start here and measure all the way around the belt, it'll be 21 inches long. And this type of belt sander's been around for a long time. Now, this is an older belt sander, and I actually found this at I think it was a garage sale or a swap meet. And I don't remember what I paid for it, but it wasn't very much money. It's an old Black & Decker, and a lot of belt sanders, if you look at them, they'll have some bolt holes, usually in the top, and this is one that had that. And the reason that it has that, it's so that you can attach this belt sander to different things. And I've actually seen people in shipyards putting them on long sticks and using them running up the sides of hulls with a long board on a belt sander. But here in the workshop, I adapted this a few years ago, where I've attached it to this board, and you can see the bolts there, and we'll give you a close-up of it. And it's pretty simple. You just drill a couple holes in there, and this board, that's all it is a simple couple of boards put together. And I'll show you what that looks like as a close-up here so that you can get a detail of that. If I were using this belt sander when it was not attached, and you can see I've just put a couple of bolts in, and I have a couple of wing nuts just to tighten it up so that it tightens this top in here to the wood, and the same thing here. And if I were using this belt sander, there's a switch right here, and I've actually just used a little Velcro strip on here to keep it permanently on, in the on position. But if this was loose, I'd be laying this down on wood, and I'd be using the belt down here and running it, holding it back and forth. I'd be holding it up here because this is another handle up here. And let's take it out of that so that you can see that a little bit better, and I tip that up. There, you can see that that's a handle up here, and here's a handle here. Now this is the normal way that you use it, but because I have it attached to this board, and if you notice from the side, I also have, there's a lip that hangs down over here, right, this area right here. And what I do with that is I use this as a portable belt sander, and I put this in my vise, so let's show you that. And here's my bench vise. So what I can do, because I store this below my bench, I can just quickly grab it and take it, and because it's got this lip back here, I can just set this in my workbench just like that, then tighten up that lip, and now I have a belt sander that I can use on its side. And I'm going to show you why I really like this kind of a design. But before that, I want to show you how the switching works. A moment ago I just mentioned that I have a little Velcro strip that keeps the trigger on this permanently in the on position. And the reason that I have that is I have another switch for it. And if you look in your local woodworking stores, Rockler, Lee Valley, Woodcrafter, most of those stores, you can find these little off and on switches, and they're little foot pedals. And all I've done is taken my belt sander, plugged it into that, and of course the other side plugs into a wall socket. And now I put this on the floor, and whenever I want to turn this belt sander on and off, I just simply step on it with my foot. And it turns the belt sander off and on. So I don't have to fiddle around with this. And now I'm going to show you why that is such a good combination, how this actually all works together. The reason I really like this kind of a design is that when you're working with it, you actually can look down on the work. Now, a lot of you will have a little small belt sanders that rotate up and down, and they're great little units. I don't have one of those. This is my belt sander. And the reason I like this design is because when I'm doing work, I can actually look straight down on my work and see very precisely what I'm doing without risking of sawdust one way or the other. So to use this tool, and I've already got the foot switch on the floor, now all I have to do for working is step on it and do my work. And I can look right down from here and see what exactly I'm doing at a very close proximity. So it works very well, and I'm going to show you now a top-down view of that. So you can see when you're working and looking down from above just how easy it is to see your workpiece. Now I'm going to turn the sander on with my foot switch. And you can see how easy it is to see the detail. So all I've shown you is just a different way of using probably a tool you already have. Sometimes they don't have the little bolt holes in the top, and I'm sure there's other ways that you can adapt to do the same kind of thing. I like it because it's portable. Now when I'm finished with it, I just lift it up and I can put it underneath my workbench, and that's it. It's out of the way. It's that quick and that easy to use. Let's have a look now at a different kind of belt sander. This is one of my new acquisitions. This is a little 2.5 inch by 14 inch little belt sander, little hand belt sander, and I've seen them being used from time to time. And of course you can get all sorts of different grits of sandpaper of different belts with them, just like you can the bigger ones. And I've always wanted one of these. I thought it would be a very handy tool because I use a lot of rough lumber, and I'm finding that I have to rough sand that lumber down for different reasons, and I thought this would be a handy one. I've got the one in the vise that I can use from time to time, and I can take it out of the vise. It takes a little bit of fiddling, but I thought this would be handy. Now, this is a great little sander, but it's heavy. It weighs 5 pounds. It's a little brick. Let me show you what 5 pounds looks like. Here's what 5 pounds looks like. Here's a 5-pound dog. There's a 5-pound belt sander. The dog and the belt sander weigh the same amount. Now you can imagine if you're holding that and it's spinning and you're only holding it with one hand, there's a lot of power in there, and that's why they have a second grip there, because it has so much power it can come back on you. So despite the fact that you may be seeing people using it with only one hand, this is a powerful little belt sander. Anytime I'd ever seen anybody using this little belt sander, they always seem to be very comfortable using it with one hand. But when I used it with one hand and the 5 pounds, I found that it's a lot of work. You really need to use 2 hands with this little guy, but it does do a great job. Despite the fact it's only 2.5 inches here, it still does a great job, and it's very handy, especially for getting in smaller areas. So just another version of a belt sander that you might find useful in your shop. When you're using belt sanders, of course, you want to use good eye protection. They're fairly loud, so you also want to use hearing protection with them. One of the things that I found about belt sanders, and you may have found different examples, but whenever I'm working with them, I don't find them extremely dusty. For example, not nearly as dusty as something like a bandsaw or even a random orbital sander. These are actually fairly all the dust seems to gather very close to the belt. It doesn't throw it around. I guess because the belt is running at a lower speed. Even this one's not a real dusty tool, but it's always good to have dust collection. And normally, if I'm working at this for a while, I'll put my dust collector so that it's picking up the dust as it's coming off, so that it's not getting into the air. But as far as dust, it's not as bad as some other tools and some other sanders. Despite that, I still prefer to do all of my sanding outside so that I don't have to worry about dust in the workshop and the wind just blows it away. I have a free breezeway that it just sort of takes the dust away. So if you're lucky to have that, that's a good place to sand. So that's our quick look at belt sanders today. I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. Once again, we ask you, if you haven't subscribed to us, to subscribe to us, and also check out our website, Woodwork Web. There is always an associated article with these videos. I'm Colin Canet. Thanks for watching.